Click for IB Biology. The motion and movement of marine mammals. We'll be studying the use of flippers and flukes in movement, and then go on to take a brief look at the airways of these organisms as they face the challenges of aerobic respiration in the marine environment. There is a blank PDF of this presentation down in the description so that you can make your own notes, along with a link to a quick quiz with answers. At the end of the presentation, you can screen clip an AI prompt which will allow you to do your own questions, and there's also channel links to further videos in this series. We will be looking at two major groups of marine mammals: the Pinnipeds, here represented by seals and sea lions, and the Cetaceans, here represented by the dolphin and the whale. You'll notice that both animals, the two sets of animals, have this elliptical shape with tapering at either end of the body. And of course, this is part of the streamlining process to overcome the resistance of water as they swim and make their swimming more efficient. The Pinnipeds have flippers rather, at the front of their bodies and also at the rear. So flippers at the anterior and posterior portions of the body, whereas if we compare that to the Cetaceans, then flippers are only present at the anterior portion of their body. At the dorsal position, we have what is called a fluke structure. So the Pinnipeds, of course, retain a semi-aquatic lifestyle. They are on land for some periods of time, and their front flippers reflect this mode of living by retaining a skeletal system very, very similar to terrestrial animals. And indeed, the front flippers allow the Pinnipeds to move over land and support their body weight while they do so. Posteriorly, their hind limbs, are the hind flippers, are able to go into what is called a lateral flex, pointing them backwards. And this is where the power comes from in pinniped swimming. And the flippers in this area are usually webbed to increase the forces generated as they move up and down in a dorsal-ventral fashion. The front flippers, to some extent, can be involved in creating propulsion, but also they are largely associated with steerage, direction, and stability. And of course, as previously mentioned, the movement on land. Contrastingly, the cetaceans are fully aquatic. The front limb, the skeletal system inside the flipper is fused. It's far less flexible. It's very rigid. And so this is used almost entirely for steerage and stability, acting like a hydrofoil. The propulsion comes from the hind structure known as the fluke, which is at the end of the spinal cord, ending in what is known as the caudal peduncle, where there's a kind of ball and socket joint. The fluke itself contains no bones. It's entirely of muscle and connective tissue, and has this characteristic shape, often with this notch in the middle here like so, and performs an up and down movement in the dorsal-ventral planes, and this is what creates the propulsion in whale swimming and dolphin movement as it goes forward. If we consider the challenge faced by these organisms for aerobic respiration. The pinnipeds have the capacity to close their nostrils, and down in the lung structure, their alveoli are noted for having a good deal of cartilage, which prevents collapse under water pressure as they dive deeper. They do, however, have the capacity to control the collapse of their lung, and the purpose of this is to overcome the increased solubility of nitrogen at depth. So this avoids getting nitrogen into their blood gases. And the pinnipeds are well known for their myoglobin in their muscle structure, which has a very high affinity for oxygen, allowing them to store a great deal of oxygen for the dives that they complete. The myoglobin in the pinnipeds has a far higher affinity than human myoglobin, and its oxygen dissociation curve would be shifted strongly to the left of human beings. Whales, contrastingly, their nostril structure has adapted and evolved to a more dorsal position. The fossil record tends to suggest that this was achieved somewhere between 30 to 35 million years ago. Placing the nostrils in this position here is now known as a blowhole. With the ventilation of the lung, a whale is capable of exchanging 90% of the air in a single breath. Compare that to the 15% which human beings can achieve. Like the pinnipeds, they have a great deal of myoglobin and hemoglobin, in fact, allowing them to store oxygen for prolonged dives, some of which have been recorded around about 3 hours long that they've been submerged. There are additional adaptations in the cetaceans for prolonging their dive, but they are not featured in this particular video. Here we have the AI clip that you should make. Clip this, screen clip this, paste it into your AI bot, and that will allow you to control the questions that you take in order to secure your learning here. There's a link to the channel, there's a link to the playlist should you wish to look at others in this series.